or I am a Ukrainian. I'm a pastor here in the United States. I'm married to a Russian person, so I have ties to both nations. And when the war in Ukraine broke out, through my nonprofit, we raised a lot of money and went and helped a lot of people who were refugees and still continue to do that. Help, especially Christian organizations who work with people. In the last few days, there has been a lot of stuff going on online concerning this conflict. And so I want to actually address it from both my personal and some of the biblical perspective when it comes to this. I am not a historian, nor am I into politics as much, but I do want to address this because many people and world leaders are talking about peace, and we need to kind of see what does it mean by peace. Is it simply absence of war, or is it simply a defeat of oppression? I want to just give you a brief summary of this conflict. Some of you watch the news and you kind of have your preferred way of watching the news. And so I want to give you just a little bit of a background of this. But first, I want to address the big thing is I think it was yesterday, Donald Trump made a statement about Ukraine that are just factually incorrect. And so as much as I appreciate a lot of things that Donald Trump stands for in the United States, and a lot of values that do line up with Christians, but I do want to speak up when it deals with things that are just not true. For example, the first claim he said on his Truth Social yesterday is that Ukraine started this war. The war began when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Ukraine was just simply defending itself. It was not attacking Russians. The second claim was that Zelenskyy is a dictator without elections. Now, you may have your personal opinion about Zelenskyy and the whole nine yards, but Ukraine is currently under a martial law due to war. It's part of their constitution where elections cannot be legally held during wartime. And he was elected for 5 years. And so they have to change the law to be able to hold elections. And currently, millions of Ukrainians are not even in Ukraine. So it will make elections not even legit because half of the people are not even, not half, but a lot of people not even there. So to make that claim is just really weird and wrong. Then the other claim was that Ukraine made the US spend $350 billion. Again, I see a lot of emotionally targeted clips and statements online, refund back the money from Ukraine. And what I want to mention is that the real amount of money that was actually sent to Ukraine is a lot less than $350 billion, as Donald Trump mentioned. And most of that money didn't go to Ukraine. They went to United States, to American military who produce weapons. And so most of the American money actually is staying within America. That is supposed to go to Ukraine. Then there was another claim that millions have died in the war. It's extremely exaggerated. There are tens of thousands of people that have died, but there's really no credible report that put casualties of people of this war. It's a tragic war. It's a terrible war, but it's not millions. Millions didn't die. Then he did the claim that Zelenskyy had 4% approval rate, when in reality, today is Thursday, so yesterday a report came out that his approval rate was about 57%. Some people say it's 40%, so it's not 4%. That is just full-blown not true. I'm not sure if Donald Trump is trying to negotiate the end of war, but using misinformation and using just flat-out lies is just not true. And as Christians, we can't stand and applaud that because that's just not true. So let me just give you just a basic rundown of the conflict that is happening between Ukraine and Russia. I just came from Estonia. So Estonia used to be part of Soviet Union. I am Ukrainian. Talking to my parents, talking to my grandparents who grew up during Soviet Union. This thing goes way deeper than just what happened last few years. So in the 9th century, Ukraine and Russia were a part of Kievsky Rus, which was a powerful kingdom, and the Kiev was the capital. In 1988, so 1,000 years ago. Prince Volodymyr, so like same name that I have, except most of us pronounce it Vladimir now. Volodymyr, he introduced Christianity. So about 1,000 years ago, Christianity was introduced to that part, and it actually shaped the identity of both nations, Ukraine and Russia. It's deeply religious, Orthodox belief system in both, because 1,000 years ago, Prince Vladimir, or Volodymyr as they call it in the native tongue, introduced Christianity. In 17th and 19th century, Russia took control of Ukraine, restricting its language, its culture, and its identity. It always had this beef with like stumping Ukrainian identity out. In 1917 to 1933, Ukraine tried to gain the independence, but it was quickly absorbed into Soviet Union. And then came this thing where a lot of Ukrainians remember. It's called Holodomor, which is a translation into English as a famine or starvation. It's a man-made famine that killed millions of Ukrainians under the Stalin regime. He simply just went and just killed off millions. This is not exaggeration. Millions of Ukrainians just to punish them. And so there is this deep-seated resentment, I would say, even among Christians, and just this distaste of ever wanting to be connected to Russia or Russian language in Ukrainians. Partially is because of the way they were treated for a long time. And Holodomor, which is one of those things. And then in 1991, Ukraine finally became independent under the fall of Soviet Union, as other nations became independent from Soviet Union. In 2014, Russia invades Crimea and supported the separatists in the eastern Ukraine. And I actually was there on the Maidan right when the war was going on. Already protests were going on because Ukraine had a Russian supporting president, and Ukraine wants to be part of like Europe, and they lean more toward that than the Russian mentality, and less toward Russia. And so they protested, and then eventually the president got reelected and he ran away from the country. I was actually there when that was happening. And then 2022 in February, which is we're actually celebrating 3 years now, when Russia launched a full-scale invasion, even though a few weeks before that they said that will never happen, forcing Ukraine into submission. And of course, their idea is that they want to, protect Russians in Ukraine and stamp out Nazism, which is kind of weird because the Zelenskyy is from a Jewish descent. So the rhetoric that they use that Ukraine is going to be part of NATO, but there's a lot of other countries that are border with Russia that are part of NATO. They're not attacking those nations. And so this is not a border dispute. This is just a battle for survival. And so here are some things that as a pastor and as a Christian, and I want to be also careful because I do know many of you that are watching even right now, this conflict doesn't touch you at all, probably. Some of you have your own opinions on this. Some of you watch or support people like Donald Trump, who has been surrounded with people that are pro-Russia and anti-Ukraine during this election. And so a lot of opinions are going to be circulating. And so I just want to bring some truth in that. You can take this and do whatever you want with it. I have a Russian wife. I am on the Russian television of a pastor who is from Russia. So I don't have a problem. I don't hate Russian people. I love Russian people. I love Ukrainian people. And I've been accused by Ukrainians for being a Russian spy. I've been accused by Americans for being a Russian spy. Some people try to explain the sudden rise of my ministry in American circles, and this is what they said. They said that Vlad is just a Russian spy, even though I actually have never been to Russia. I've never been to Russia in my life. Okay, I was actually planning to go preach in Russia, but then the war broke out. And so there's accusations that's going to go around, and some people saw because I was on a television that is like the headquarters, I guess, is in America or in Russia. They're saying, oh, look, Vlad is just selling his soul to Russia now. So a lot of stuff that's been circulating. And usually with me, I don't pay attention to a lot of this stuff. But when I see that stuff being presented by Donald Trump, and I do see where I have a feeling where this peace treating is going to go. So I just want to chime in my 5 cents. Would love to hear your feedback. But here are a few things I wanted to chime in as a pastor and as a Christian leader, but also as a Ukrainian. One is that we stand for truth, not just what's trendy and what's popular. The truth is, Ukraine is defending itself against an unjust invasion. Ukraine did not start this war. Russia's government is the one that's oppressing. It's not liberating anybody. I've been to Ukraine during war. I was in Kiev a month after Russian forces left. I went to Bucha. I went to places where it was just a massacre. Hospitals were demolished. This is not a liberation. This is oppression. We don't base our views on what's trending and what's popular. We do have to follow the facts. And even as Christians, we owe to the world to not stand for things that are just not true. Okay, we can't bury our head in the sand. We Christians couldn't do that when Hitler was invading the world and feeding the world with propaganda, and we can't do that now. Especially those of you who, or those of us, myself included, who voted for Donald Trump. We can't stand in agreement with things that are just not true. Like I saw a meme by Babylon B is that, United States forgives Ukraine for invading Russia. And it's a joke, but at the same time, that's really the connotation that is happening now with a lot of people in the United States. The second thing that I want to highlight is the Bible warns us about brother fighting brother. In fact, you do not get further than the first family in the Bible, and you see a brother out of jealousy kills his brother. The Bible doesn't portray that as Cain being good. In fact, Jesus says that the blood that was spilled was unjust. And we see in the New Testament that the blood cries out. And so to say these things where Christians were like, well, you know what, this was just, territory, just another war. Like, these are two brothers. Ukraine and Russian people, they have families in both places. Like, it's extremely conflicting and painful. But with that said, there is no justification for the slaughtering of people. And there is no justification for this to be somehow justified as Russia is liberating Ukraine. This is wrong, and it's barbaric, demonic, and untrue. Families are being torn apart. Languages and histories are being, they're intertwined. And what we're seeing is literally a slaughtering of one brother against another. It's painful, it is wrong, and we condemn that. Thirdly, that I want to highlight, and that is peace must be rooted in justice. Matthew chapter 5 does say, blessed are the peacemakers. And peacemaking in the Bible is not surrendering to evil, but it's bringing justice. David didn't negotiate with Goliath, he defeated him. Moses didn't cut deals with Pharaoh, he led Israel to freedom. And Jesus stood against injustice. He didn't compromise with darkness. And there's a danger of false peace, or like, hey, just get peace at any cost. Let's just end the bloodshed. 100%. I pray for this. We fast for this, that the peace will come. But right now, some leaders would suggest that as long as Israel gives up the land in exchange for peace, but it's not really peace. It's going to be giving in to a bully. And history shows that appeasement only emboldens the oppressor. Would you tell a victim to surrender to their abuser just for the sake of peace? Absolutely not. Ukraine's sovereignty is not a bargaining chip. My personal perspective as somebody who's connected to both nations. I love Ukrainians. I'm Ukrainian. I love Russians. I'm married a Russian wife. I love Russians. And my love for Russians doesn't mean I justify what their government and what many of their people stand for. Many Russians I know do not support this war, and they will face persecution and are facing persecution. Some of them have to run for speaking out anything against the unjust war. Some pastors and leaders, they put their tail between their legs and they cave in and they kiss the ring of oppressor Putin, just so that they could have the favor, and they not just remain silent, but condoned and pretty much confirmed that yes, this is right. We need to stomp out the Nazism and everything, which is just a blatant lie, which is not true, and we can't do that. Ukrainian church is fighting for survival. There's a revival that's happening, but they're fighting for survival. We must pray and support them. As Christians, we're called to peacemaking, but peace must be built on truth. A peace that rewards aggression is not peace at all. It's a surrender to aggression and oppression. We must not empower the bully, but stand against injustice. May God give us wisdom, the wisdom to the world leaders, strength to those who defend the innocent, and the courage to all who speak God's truth. I believe Ukraine's freedom is worth standing for, because real peace is not absence of war. It's the presence of justice. So here are just a few of my thoughts. Please pray for Ukraine. Please pray for Russia. Please pray for the defeat of evil in this world. This is nothing but evil, and the plans and the schemes of the enemy to be destroyed. And for God to give wisdom to Donald Trump, to President Zelenskyy, European other people, that this war will come to an end. But God's truth must prevail, and justice. God is not just a God of peace. God is a God of justice, and He punishes evil and injustice. The Bible says to walk humbly with our God, to do justly, and to love mercy. And so all these three things, they don't contradict each other. They must come together. And that's what I am praying for. So thank you for hearing my heart out, and would love to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you. We continue actually supporting some of the charities in Ukraine, even now. Some of the orphanages and some of the other places. Again, I am on a television that reaches a lot of Russian people. I translate my videos into Russian language. Some people in Ukraine are offended. They're like, you need to do it just in Ukrainian language. But most of the Ukrainians, they speak Russian. And so my goal is to reach a wider audience and to bring the good news of Jesus Christ. But with that said, I can't be silent when I see blatant lies, and when I see oppression, slaughter. And what I've seen there when I was there in Ukraine is just literally wanting to obliterate, wipe out a whole nation. And that's just not right. That is not right. Absolutely. That is demonic. That is wrong. And if you're reading the story in the Bible and you see Cain killed Abel, and you're like, oh yeah, probably had a good reason. No, that's not right. That is wrong. That is wrong. And God cursed him for it. And unjust wars, unjust bloodshed brings God's judgment. And we can't call something good that God calls evil. Thank you for watching. God bless you.